Hello and welcome to this tutorial on how to make this granny square with the V stitches. I've posted this square on my Facebook and my Instagram account, which is Garnet is a Jewel, and I got a lot of requests. I also posted it in some of my Facebook groups that I deal with crochet with. Everybody loved it. They said, "How did you do that?" Well, here's the tutorial and I'm going to show you how to do it. So let's get started. Here are the colors that we will be using to make this particular block. I'm going to start with the colors that I'm using for the V-stitch. This one is Red Heart Super Saver in the color Claret, which is like a burgundy color. The second one is a Red Heart Super Saver in the color Flamingo, which is a coral color. This yarn here is from AC Moore. It's part of their in-stock yarn collection. It is a variegated green, and if I can get the light to show it, it has like a silver sparkle wrapped around inside of it. I'm not using that much of it because you'll notice that in our block, let me show you really quick, we're only using enough to go around one time. And then the last color that we're using is Vanna's Choice in the color Mustard. Some other things that we're using is a pair of scissors. I have here a large eye tapestry needle. This right here is a size G crochet hook. It is from Hobby Lobby's luxury line. It's ergonomic and it's very comfortable. I really like this hook. So let's get started with our tutorial. Before we use any yarn, we always want to pull out as much as we can from our skein. You can see here I was going to make another block, but I thought I'd make a video out of it. So let's undo some yarn from our skein and let's get started. We're going to start with a magic circle, so I encourage you to leave at least 8 inches and then wrap it around 2 or 3 fingers so that it makes an X. Take your hook and go under the circle we created and pull the yarn that comes from your skein up so that you can make that first chain stitch on there, and then go ahead and tighten your chain. Okay, and then chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Now as we go through this, I will show you the beginning of the row, and some rows may be repeats so that we do not have an extremely long video. I will show you a few times and then you will continue on. For those beginners, if you don't understand, I encourage you to pause your video and rewind just a few seconds, and then we can go on. Now for our first one, we're going to be making a cluster stitch. This first one counts as a double crochet, so let's go ahead and we're going to do like we're going to make a double crochet. Go through the first 2 loops and then stop. That's what I call half of a double crochet. And now we're going to continue on and do this again. This is number 2. We're going to do it 2 more times. Here's number 3. 1 more time. Now this is just for our first one because of the double crochets counting as 1. So if you count back, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 half done double crochets and chain 3. So we're going to take our yarn over our hook and go through all of the loops on our hook, snug it up, chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Now after this one, you will be making a total of 8 of these clusters. So this was number 1. So for number 2, what we're going to do, yarn over into the hook or the loop or the circle. My mind is going too fast. I am so sorry. We now have 3 loops on our hook. Go through 2, yarn over into the circle, draw up a loop, go through 2 loops on the hook. Okay. Now if your circle's starting to get too big, take your tail and pull it. It'll tighten and lessen the size. Okay. So we have 2, yarn over through our circle, draw up a loop, yarn over through 2 loops on the hook. We've done 3, yarn over, pull up a loop, through 2, we have 4, one more, this is the last one, through 2, okay, so we have 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, now yarn over and through all the loops on our hook, snug it up, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, okay, make 6 more of these clusters, and I'll see you when we get back here to the first one. So after we have a total of 8 of these clusters, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, you chain 3. Then back at our first one that we had our chain 3, you want to go up to the top of that chain 3, and we're going to make a slip stitch. Snug it up, cut a little tail. I always cut tails that are about 8 inches. Pull your yarn through and tighten it up. Now for our magic circle, I always like to hold my finger and thumb right here at the tail area. Now I have mine flipped over so that the wrong side is showing. Now I'm going to go ahead and tighten it. Try to work it around because there's so many stitches here. Don't pull it too tight so that your yarn breaks. See how big my circle is? That's about how big you want yours. If it's a little bit bigger, that's okay. Next, with our tapestry needle, we're going to go ahead and thread our needle, and then where our tail comes out at, we want to go through all of those stitches, or as many as that you can get through. If you don't get through all of them, it's okay. You can see I can't get through every single solitary one of them, but you want to go around one more time, and then after you snug it up and pull it, you'll notice that our circle is going to get a little bit smaller. Okay, so we're almost there, and this will just help reinforce this circle for future use so that we know it won't fall apart. Okay, so I'm going to go through a few more past my starting point, and you'll notice how my circle in the center is smaller now. So I'm going to go over the top of one of these, and I'm going to go back in the other direction. Just a few, because what we're going to do is we're going to weave in the end here so that it doesn't come unravel. And then go over one. There we go. This completes our first center one. The next color you're going to want to pull out is green. So to begin with our green, we want a little tail. and we're going to place a slip knot on our hook. At one of the spaces of the chain 3, which will be in between our clusters, insert your hook and make like a slip stitch. Okay, and then tighten up whatever you can there, and then chain 2. In the same space, we're going to do 2 double crochets, chain 2, and in that same space 3 double crochets. This will form a corner. Chain 1, and in our next chain 3 space 3 double crochets. Chain 1, and in our next space we will be starting our repeat, which will be our corner, chain 2, after our corner, chain 1, 3 double crochets. So let's start our corner, and then I'll let you finish this row on your own. So we have 3 double crochets, chain 2, slide your work over in that same space, 3 double crochets, chain 1, and then you'll do your 3 double crochets, and your next one will be a corner. Continue around. You should have 4 of the corners that will have 2 double crochet sets and a chain 2 in between. So how did you do? Do you have 4 corners and then 4 sets of 3 double crochet? I hope so. So after our chain 1, we're going to slip stitch into the top of the chain 2. I know this sounds a little bit different than some of the other ones you might have done before, but it all turns out good, trying to eliminate a lot of extra bulk or wave or something. Okay, so if you need to, you can stretch, you can tug, you can pull, do whatever you need to do. Our next color is coral. Now, even though I have my colors out, I'm going to encourage you now to weave in the green, the 2 greens, and the gold, so that we don't have all these excessive threads hanging around. So with another slip knot on your hook with our new color, in a corner where the chain 2 is at, let's draw up your loop and continue with a slip knot here, and then chain 2, 1, 2. So since this is our corner, we're going to 2 more double crochets, chain 2, three double crochets in the same space, and chain 1. Now, I know a lot of you know the same theory of how granny squares are made, so I'm going to show you how to do this row, and then I'm going to encourage you to complete this row and then move up to the second row and complete that row as well. Now in this row we're going to add 3 double crochets here, chain 1, 3 double crochets here, chain 1, and in the corner space we're going to add our corner as we have done before. So let's quickly go through that. I'm trying to find a way of not making my videos so long that we do 45-minute to an hour videos, so I'm not trying to rush you along. I just want to make it so that it's not so demanding of your time. But if you leave a comment, please let me know if you think I'm rushing, because I don't want you to feel rushed. Crochet is supposed to be fun and leisure time. Plus you want to make sure whatever you're making is correct. So here we are in the corner again. We're going to do 3 double crochets. I usually call them the granny stitch because that's what it reminds me of. And 3 double crochets in the same space. Don't forget your chain 2 in between your 2 grannies. Okay, so after that, chain 1, and then you continue around. Here's your corner, and here's your other corner. When you get here, I'll meet you there real quick and start you on the second row. So we're at the end of the row, and as I told you before, let me move my mouse out of the way since I watch movies as I make my videos. Let's complete our row. What you're going to do is at the top of your chain 2, you want to slip stitch it closed, and then over the next 2 double crochets, slip stitch, and then in the chain 2 space, slip stitch into that. Alright, now we're going to chain 2, and we're going to repeat this row around, and you will want to slip stitch it closed. I'll show you the corner. Okay, so we have 1 and 2, chain 2, and then 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3. Now for our beginners, you'll notice that you'll have not just 2, you'll have 3. See, here's 1 hole there, 2 holes, 3 holes. Okay, so you'll have 3 grannies across here with chain 1 in between. In your corners or chain 2. Continue all the way around, and I'll meet you here where we slip stitch and start our next row, which will be our V-stitch. So at the end of this row, we're going to go ahead and do our slip knot and slip knot to the chain 2 space, and then get out your next color. Mine is going to be the claret, which is a maroon burgundy color. So as before, let's go ahead and slip stitch to the chain 2 space, which will give us about 3 slip stitches. Once we're there, chain 2, and then make that last loop kind of long to help it so it doesn't fall apart. And this is what we have so far. Okay, now I have my maroon color out, and we're going to start with a little 8-inch tail on it and place a slip knot. The row that we just completed will not get our V-stitch on it. The row that we attached our last row to will. So we're going to take our corner where we're at right here with our last chain 2. We're going to separate those 2 grannies here in the corner, and we're going to place our V-stitch in the center here. So let's start with a slip knot, snug it up a little, and then chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That'll count as 1 double crochet and the chain 2 that goes in between. And in the same space, 1 double crochet. So So this is what we have so far. Now to move on to our next V-stitch, do not chain. We're just going to go right straight. So here's our, we're not going to do this row here. We're going to fold that back. So the row that we're going to be working on, of the 3 in that granny cluster, we will place our next V-stitch. So in the center, double crochet, do 1 double crochet, chain 2, 1 double crochet, all in that same stitch. So this is what you should have so far. Okay, and to move on to the next one, remember the last row we did is going to be folded back. So our next granny cluster will have the V-stitch in the center. So double crochet, chain 2, double crochet in that same stitch. Okay, let's continue to the corner. I'm going to keep right on going. We're going to do our V-stitch, chain 2, and our V-stitch. We have one more granny here. This is our corner from our first row of the coral color that I have. Double crochet, whoops, chain 2, double crochet. So this brings us back to our corner. That last row, we want to separate it and place our V-stitch. Double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. Now our first granny, which is still part of that corner, is where our next V-stitch will go. Double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. So I'm going to stop right there, and I'm going to show you what I have so far. Okay, you'll notice how we have our V-stitch leaning forward. I brought up my grannies, and we're going to bring them back like this. So continue all the way around, and I'll meet you when we get back to our slip stitch at the top of chain 3 of the first chain 5 that we had. Alright, I know you see a bunch of strings here. Okay, so let's slip stitch into the top of chain 3. I like to pick up 2 strands because I hate to stretch them out. Okay, and then we're going to stop right there for this color. So go ahead and make a long tail, and you can place it in front of you or you can place it behind you. Now let's go back to our coral color. Now this is where the fun begins. Okay, make sure you don't go over your working yarns and stuff. But we will be going over some chain spaces as we do this next row. Okay, so here we are in our corner, and we're going to take the chain 2 from the maroon, and we're going to go over that and over the coral. Okay, so 2 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. Remember, the chain 2 counts as 1 double crochet in our little granny block here. Okay, chain 1. Now, you'll see where our V-stitch is right here. But behind it, we also have where we're going to be placing our next granny, and that's in the chain 1 space. So what I would like for you to do is yarn over, go through the chain 2 and the chain 1. We're going to be going through all of that, and we're going to be pulling up 3 double crochets in this space. Chain 1. Okay, can you see how we're going over those chain 2s? So I think you're familiar with what to do for our grannies. If you're not, you can always pull that V-stitch down and say, oh, that's where it's got to go. Make sure you have your chain 2. Okay, I'll help you with this first row. So here's our 3 double crochets, chain 1. We have 2 more to do. Chain 1, and we're almost at our corner. I'll show you what to do at the corner, and then you can continue around. 1, 2, 3, chain 1. Now at this corner, you're going to be picking up both of them, just like we did, and do our regular corner. And then chain 2, 1, 2. We're going to do our second set of granny. So go ahead and continue this all the way around, and I'll meet you when we get back here to our first stitch of this row. So at the end of this row, we're going to do as before, slip stitch closed and slip stitch over the next 2 stitches and the chain 2. Okay, now we're going to chain 2 and make a large tail. So this is what we have so far. It looks like a little zigzag in there. It gets better, I promise. Let's move on to our next color. So tightening the loop with our maroon yarn, we're going to go ahead and slip stitch into the chain 2 space. And I think you know where we're going with this. Chain 5 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And in that same space, double crochet. Okay, so what we're going to do this time is we're going to go right here in between and pick up the double crochet and in between the 2 V stitches. So we're going to have to go to the center. If you have to flip it over to the back, you can. So we're going to fold down the row we just completed. Oops, double crochet into that space. Chain 2, double crochet into the same space. Now that will be going over the chain 1 and the split in between the 2 double crochets. There is enough room there to add that next stitch without it interfering with the V stitch. So here's our next granny. So here's 1, 2, and 3, and so we're going to go right here in between, and we're going to come up into that space and do another V stitch, chain 2, and double crochet in the same space. Okay, now you see where the next location is. You can already see the little diamonds forming right here. Go ahead and go all the way around. Of course, when you get to this corner here, you do your V-stitch between the two corner grannies. Go ahead and go around, and I'll meet you at the end. Alright, I put this paper underneath it because I know that with my lawyer's desk and that dark color don't help much, but you can kind of see the diamonds that are already starting to appear. We have one more row of the diamond, the V-stitch to do. So we do have, let's see here, we do have a couple more rows. We have two more rows of grannies to do, and one more row of V-stitch. So I hope yours is coming along fine, that you're not having any problems. Please comment in the comment box if I am going a little too fast. I hope I'm not. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and move on. Let's go ahead and start our next row of grannies. It's going to be the same thing we had just done. We're going to come up here. We've already chained 2, and so put our loop back on the hook and 2 double crochet, chain 2, and 3 double crochet. And I think you know what to do all the way around. I'm going to show you in the first one and help refresh your memory. I hope you remember. So in our chain 2, look behind and you'll see there's that chain 1. You want to place 3 double crochets, chain 1 and 3 double crochets in the next chain 2, chain 1 space. Okay, there's 3. Okay, so go ahead and go all the way around, and what that's going to do is it's going to lock the chain 2s down into that next row. Okay, so go ahead and do that all the way around, and when you get here, slip stitch, chain, and then chain 2 and stretch your chain out, and then we'll start on our next V-stitch row. Now at the end of this row, if your block looks a little buckled and puckled and whatever, just stretch it out a little like so, and it will lay flat again. Remember, you are putting a lot of extra stitching in, and sometimes it just needs a little encouragement to be eased out. Alright, so as I reminded you before, slip stitch at the top of that chain 2 and slip stitch across, chain 2, and then make your big long tail with the coral color. Now with our maroon color, we're going to go back and we're going to do the same thing over again. We're going to pull over our corner stitches and bend them to the back and slip stitch, and then chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and double crochet in that same space. Okay, and this row we're going to be doing the same thing again. Here's our first granny, so we're going to double crochet in that center one. See, I can pull it through to the back and see, and then take that chain 1 from the row we just completed, and we want to go into the center of that. Complete our double crochet, chain 2, and double crochet in that same stitch. Okay, so you're already familiar with what we're going to do. Go ahead and do it all the way around. This will be our last row, and then we will do one more granny row and complete this block. So all the way around. When you get here, we're going to slip stitch and cut our stuff, our yarn, and stick it to the back, and then this row will be our final row for our grannies. I'll meet you at the end of this row to get you started on the second row, and I'll see you then. Okay, so here we are at the end of the row. You want to slip stitch into the top of that chain 3, and we are going to cut our maroon yarn and we will take it and go through the chain 2 space to bring it to the back side. Now let's go ahead and finish our last row. We're going to 2 double crochets in our chain 2 spaces, chain 2. So we're all familiar with this granny row, and we're going to do the 3 double crochets and then chain 1. Okay, so our next one, of course, will be at the chain 2 and the chain 1. So go through all of those. Okay. So continue on around, and I'll meet you here after we've slip stitched this. And also, if you notice how my block is going a little crazy here, I'm just going to stretch it out. Remember, when you add new stitches, sometimes you have to encourage it to lie flat, and like magic, there it goes. So go ahead and go all the way around. I'll meet you right here. So this completes the making of our granny block with the V-stitch in it. Adds these nice little diamonds and little peekaboos. Now, if you wanted to, you could have always used variegated yarn and have different colored little peekaboos through here. I'm planning on making an afghan out of this, making just a regular granny block in between, and then have these as a series. The finished size of my block here is 8.5 inches square. So this is a pretty nice size block. If you wanted to, you could go a couple more rounds and then added some more of these V-stitch and just make this a huge single block. It could be beautiful for a baby blanket or anything. So I wanted to thank you for joining me in the making of this block. I'm glad that so many of my friends and you appreciate it. It was posted on Facebook and Instagram. So I hope to see you again in another crochet project. Thanks for joining me. I hope my instructions were clear in this quick video, and I hope to see you again next time. Bye-bye.